Okay, so last but not least, Brett Bishop, Director of Contract Services with Build It Green. And Brett, as the Director of Contract Services, works closely with contractors, drawing on his years as an HVAC system designer and installer, general contractor, and green building subject matter expert. His most recent accomplishments include successfully petitioning the CPUC for the formulation of California's new regional energy network, the 3C REN, and designing and implementing programs that focus on the nexus of energy and health. Brett was a panelist for the American Council for an Energy Efficient Economies Hospitals and Healthcare Partnerships last November, and working in the space of decarbonization with MCE, designing a behind-the-meter energy storage program to better utilize California's investments in clean energy and solar. All right, take it away, Brett.
Thank you, everyone. How many of you have heard of Build It Green? Fantastic. Okay. So I ran the Healthy Home Connect program in its first iteration. Coming from the background of having been a green builder, I'm going to start my presentation a little bit of why does this stuff actually improve health in the home, and then we're going to get really close to the working in disadvantaged communities, showing, raise this up a little bit, showing what the conditions are like and why some of the existing conditions can be a barrier to energy efficiency as well as health. Build It Green's mission to create a world of healthy and sustainable homes for all people. And so this is why we care. So we were talking about outdoor pollutants like ozone, PM 2.5, things of that nature, but there's a lot that's behavioral and a lot that's kind of conditional because the spaces that the air is traveling through are spaces we never see. And so that's where you find your rodents. And actually birds are quite a bit more impactful on health than rodents. So keeping them out of attic spaces and things of that nature have serious impacts. I'm going to talk a little bit later about an online resource called the Hayward Score, where you can go in and you can answer some really simple questions, and it will spit out a result that will tell you, how impactful the conditions in your home can be. That score was created because the fellow that owns construction supply called Hayward Construction Supply, his daughter was about 3 to 4 years old, and there was a bunch of birds that were living in the attic space over her bedroom. And after 3 or 4 years, multiple doctor visits, they found that the contaminants in the attic space were the only thing really that were making her sick. And cleaning up the environment is what saved his daughter's life. So that's how that came to be. So leaks through the house. The stack effect is something that happens when the house heats up and cools with the sun rising and setting. So it's a natural passive force, and it is just going to happen. So if you don't control the ways that the air flows through the house, you can get a lot of contaminants from subfloors, from attic spaces. It's actually traveling through the hollows in the walls. That photo on the right is underneath a bathtub. And so it's just a big hole cut in the floor. Plumber needed to put a pipe through there. On a job site, it's literally no one's job to fix that. So that's part of the problem. And so this is how we want to have air movement through the house. We want to control it so that we can run it through the filter of the system. And so the outer shell of the house needs those weatherization measures to keep the outdoor pollutants out. And then the ductwork system is not passive. It's got a big fan in it. It's pushing things around. A cubic foot of air is about the size of a basketball, and your average heating system is going to run 800 basketballs per minute through the ductwork system. And so there's a lot of velocity, a lot of air movement, and if the leak is on the side that comes back to the air handler, it's going to be pulling in contaminants and then spitting them out into your rooms through the registers. Let's see, this is about BPI. These are protocols on how do we address it when we find things like mold. Like, what do you do about a contaminant? The first order of business is always just get it removed, rather than try to do some kind of remediation, like cover it up or encapsulation, things of that nature. And we actually touched on this one a little bit earlier, but so I'll keep moving on. So we received a grant from Facebook initially, the first grant, to kind of fill the gaps in the EE funding sources and bring together other organizations that worked in the same space so that we could do really comprehensive retrofits in disadvantaged communities. So the Energy Savings Assistance Program, that's run by PG&E. We use Peninsula Minor Home Repair, and the Single Family Affordable Solar, and the Facebook grant. And brought all those things together with those partners, and this was our outcome. We took a $100,000 grant and turned it into $208,000 worth of services that were directly provided to this community. It's the Belhaven community. It's in East Palo Alto. It's actually right along the 101, and in that target region that we saw everything was missing, we went straight there. So this is the conditions that we found, our participants. The Hayward score is a 1 to 100 score, 100 being healthy. This house scored a 13. We affectionately just called it House 13. So there's a 3-year-old living in that house with asthma. That's their roof. And you can see all of these leaks. This is the return side into the furnace. So everything in that space, if that duct leaked, all of those air contaminants would be pulled into that system, pushed through the furnace, got heated up, and then blown into the house. Here's another, this one, the photo on the right. They had a leak in their roof, and the drywall got rotted and contaminated. So they removed the drywall. They did not have the money to replace it. So what you're looking at is that photo is taken from the hallway looking up. So right into the attic space. You know, a typical energy efficiency program would never have funding for this, right? I mean, they've got LED light bulbs, they've got some weather stripping, that kind of thing. It's just not funded. The metrics that you have in energy efficiency land are, we want kilowatt hour savings, we want therm savings, you know. So, also removing carpet, things of that nature. There's just no money for it. And here's another one. This is showing some water damage on another roof. There was 18 homes. Of the 18 homes, we had to replace 16 roofs. On the left, you'll see the mold. And on the right, that is a hood duct, and the hood was removed, so it's just a pipe that goes straight out into the atmosphere. So pretty cold in the wintertime. No way to control that air. And some venting over on the left. It's a fire hazard, another damaged roof. And you know, 6-year-old with allergies lived in this house. And so my associate, Amy Dryden, was supposed to be here today, but she had a situation where she's not available. And so she worked in collaboration with Mr. Kent. And I'm going to kind of try to present that information to you guys today. This is an example of the LIWIP program and how we were able to leverage that working with the nurses. Big worked with both Corsicana County and, as you heard from Michael, and Alameda County with the asthma programs. And it was a great connection because they had a direct access to the people that had the asthma, and so we could target our interventions there. And as program administrators, we've looked into opportunities to reach all populations and serve the home comprehensively. Through low-income programs, funds are directed at our most vulnerable populations, but within those vulnerable populations, there's still even more vulnerable people. We had one participant in this particular program that needed dialysis every single day, and so it was very, very difficult to get construction managed, staged, and installed. So through that collaborative effort, we were able to treat the homes and do things like remove contaminated carpet, so it filled a gap in energy efficiency funding. And so, you know, where are we going to go from here? We're looking at things like electrification in health. Having combustion appliances inside of homes is going to depressurize by nature because you've got that exhaust pipe of hot air moving out, so that air's got to come in from somewhere. Also, if we decarbonize the buildings, then we're not putting that carbon into the atmosphere either. We have to think about, usually when we think about energy and pollution, we think about huge, huge smokestacks. But next time you drive through the Bay Area, look at all the houses. Every single one has 2 smokestacks. So add all that up. Currently, our data is through self-reported sources like that on the right, and that's been a barrier for us with the health industry, because the level of rigor that they require for their studies is very comprehensive. So we're currently working with Lawrence Berkeley National Labs to design a study to tie that together with Build It Green. So looking forward, the types of things that we're doing or not doing anymore in our energy efficiency programs, so like locking in carbon emitters, like replacing a furnace. You don't want to put in another furnace because they're going to run it for 25, 35 years. So that's locked in carbon. That's carbon that's going to happen for the next 3 decades. So measure selection is really impactful. The things that we can do that that kind of move us toward a future state where we can electrify. And if we start to move our metrics away from kilowatt hours and therms and start moving it to where it really belongs, which is carbon, it will unlock a lot of, basically kind of take the gloves off on the things that we're doing today. So to echo some of the things that were already said today, education is super key throughout all of these processes. The contractors that we work with, we're routinely doing things like getting technology for them that you can even do the audits, and teaching them how to know what to look for and who to refer. So that can be a challenge for people that are in workforce education and training programs. They're learning a trade, that is construction, and then you show up and you say, "Oh, I want you to learn to be a health expert also." Sorry. And you know, trying to build out the programs that we build out with the proper metrics so that we're measuring the right things, super impactful. All right, thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Brett.